Okay, let's get started here. If you guys could please open up your books to 119. Real quick, we're going to go through, today we're going to be focusing on checking, savings account, and savings accounts, mostly focusing on checking. But I failed to mention last class, on 119 there's a table at the bottom right corner. It details where to stash your cash, so I wanted to go through a few things real quick. Obviously, start at the top of it. You know what cash is. Checking account, which we're going to cover a lot of today. Savings account. The three I really wanted to focus on real quick, just to give you an idea of what they are. You might not know, you might be discovering in your plans for your presentation. So a CD, does anybody have any idea what a CD is? Go ahead.
Certificate deposit, right?
Right.
Yeah, you like put in money and then you have to leave it in there for a certain amount of time and they can get out if you take it out beforehand.
Correct. Good answer. Yeah, so to clarify, you put in money into a CD, has set interest rate, usually depends on the amount of time you're putting it in there. They can be as short as 3 months, as long as 5 years. U.S. Treasury, or a T-bill. Does anybody know what a T-bill is? Any idea? To be honest, I didn't know, so I had to look up a little information, so I'll share that with you. The book says it's a $100 minimum. I think it's changed since the book came out, because what I found was it's $1,000. And how it works is you're actually loaning the government money, and they give you a bill. So usually the bill amount will be more than what you give them. So for example, let's say the bill says $1,000, you give them $900. All right, and then there's a set interest fee. We'll talk about that later in the chapter, but there's a set interest attached to that money that you make off of it when you get your money back. Last one, savings bond. Anybody have any idea? Anybody's grandparents given them? Yeah? Yeah, my great-grandpa used to. I have like 30 of them saved up. Similar to T-bill, paying them out, you gain interest on it. Now, then this changed in 2005, they have a fixed interest rate, depending on the bill, the amount, when they're purchased. The interest rate is fixed. So now we're getting into checking and savings accounts. Checking accounts here. I'm sorry, jumped ahead of myself. Checking accounts. They have demand deposit. Does anybody know what demand deposit is? Anybody have an idea? Any guess? What do you think it would be? So you have money in, so that's your deposit. What do you think demand deposit would be then?
Like quicker deposit? I don't know.
So,
Isn't it kind of like how you have it at a bank and you can like withdraw it whenever?
right. Yeah. Your money's there, and they have to. So whatever amount you want to go take out, they have to honor that amount of what you have in there. Obviously, you can't ask for more than what's in there, but they have to give that to you. That's what demand deposit is. Good job. And then savings account, have a time deposit. What would the difference be there? Well, no. I mean, you can pull out money. It's just you're generally leaving it in there to bear interest.
Okay.
So the checking account is generally used to be more liquid. Get your cash, write checks, pay with a debit card. That's another thing. How many of you guys have a debit card? About half or so. What about checks? Anybody wrote a check before? 3 of you? All right, that's good, because we're going to, in a few minutes here, we'll get into some examples of writing checks and how that works. So we're going to get into our types. Like I said, today we're going to focus on checking accounts. So we're going to get into specific types of checking accounts. So a regular checking account, it's offered by commercial banks. They pay no interest. Your money just sits there. So that's most of your debit cards are tied to that. Your money just sits there. Interest-bearing checking accounts, they include now, which we'll get into on the next slide, share draft and money market deposit accounts. They're offered by banks. Obviously, so they have interest. Generally, they have a fee initially attached to them, or they'll have a minimum balance which you need to keep in. So now accounts. All right, now is, and this is at the bottom of your guide I gave you. So you might want to, like I said, there's a lot of this stuff's on the test, so fill in what you think you need to. And now is a negotiable order of withdrawal. And it's a checking account that pays interest. It might have a minimum balance. But they do pay interest on it.
Negotiable what?
Negotiable order of withdrawal. Next one is an MMDA, which is money market deposit account. They're convenient, safe, federally insured. They're offered by banks and other depository institutions, and they compete with money market mutual funds, which is the next one, money market mutual funds. Basically, investors pool their money together, and they'll invest in short-term, there we go, it's on video, so it'll be all right, I can say that part out. Short-term and long-term marketable securities. So kind of how they work is you put them into a fund and they'll invest that, maybe let's say in stocks or treasury bills, different things like that. You'll bear interest on that and make out in the long run then. AMAs, which is an asset management account. They're comprehensive deposit account combining checking, investing, and borrowing activities offered by brokerage firms and mutual funds. So not necessarily offered by banks. And account usually includes MMDA with unlimited free checking, debit card, and use of loans. And I failed to mention the last two. You do have access to checks, withdrawing your money. Some of them will have a fee. Going back to the MMDAs, they generally have a set amount of what you can withdraw out of that account. Can we go back? Huh? Go back. Oops. Sorry. And one nice thing about AMAs too is they're good for investors because you can pool all your resources into one spot. You don't have to use multiple institutions to allocate your money. Are we good? Are we good? Okay. Money market accounts. They're offered at depository institutions of banks. They're federally insured. They do have a minimum balance. And you do have check writing, ATM privileges, access to those. Money market mutual funds, kind of already touched on this a little bit. Pool funds for small investors. They pay interest above regular savings, and again, you still have check writing, ATM privileges, and like I said, with those, there's usually a stipulated amount of what your check writing privileges are. So let's say you have a minimum every time you want to write a check, it's got to be $500. It's not necessarily always that. That would just be an example. And then back to MMDAs real quick. The one negative to those is there's been a growing popularity with those, so banks are actually charging higher fees. So you have to be careful because sometimes the fees are actually outweighing what your interest return is. So you could be paying for an MMDA, but you're actually paying higher than what the interest you're making, so you're just paying them to have the account. You're not actually receiving a benefit from it. We're going to get into this stuff later next week, electronic part. Opening using a checking account. Some things you want to consider. And the website I'm going to show you in a few minutes gets a little more detailed in this with some examples here. You want to consider your costs, what kind of fees there are presented in your checking account. Individual or joint account. That's generally when you're married, if you want to open a joint account with your spouse. Checking account procedures, kind of fees there might be. Some banks have limits to a certain amount of checks you can write a month or how you use that. Overdrafts and overdraft protection. So does anybody know what an overdraft is? Any idea? Yeah?
It's like trying to take out more money than you have in the account.
Right. Yeah, so let's say I want to write a check to Mrs. Corp and it's for $100, but I only have $75 in my account. I'll get an overdraft. They might charge me a fee for that. And her bank, when she goes to cash it, might charge her a fee as well. Some banks do have overdraft protection. Sometimes it depends on how good your history is with them. Or some banks are offering you can sign up for that initially. What that does is, so if I go to write that check they might distribute it anyways, and then either maybe just charge me a fee, or I could get a warning first time. I've done it once, I know of, I saw on my account, where I wrote a check for more than what I had, and it dropped money in savings. I think it charged me like $3 to do that or something. Like Mrs. Corp said, I have the same thing on my debit card. If I go to use it and I don't have, like you said, $100 and I only have 80, it'll get denied. So that's probably a good thing to have, especially for you guys young starting off. Special types of checks associated with checking accounts. So we have cashier's checks. They're drawn on the bank. What that means is from the bank's funds, it's signed, you go in, you want to set them out, the teller will sign it, or the cashier can guarantee it, and there's a service fee that generally applies to those, not very much, generally 1 to 1.5%, and it's usually used for big amounts that you might not have. Traveler's checks, used for making purchases worldwide. Basically how you'd use those, I haven't used them personally, but you go to the bank, you get traveler's checks, there's a fee. When you're overseas, you can use them to go to a currency exchange. So let's say you're in Europe somewhere and you had a $100 traveler check, you can exchange that for euros over there for their currency. Certified check, they're drawn on account, but they're guaranteed by the bank. And these cannot bounce. So bounce or overdraft, that's another term for overdraft, bounce. These checks cannot bounce, the bank guarantees them. So now if you guys could get on your web browser, whatever one you want to use, and I'll show you. I'm going to go to, it's gcflearnfree.com. I got it up here if anybody needs to look. I'm sorry, .org, my fault, .org. Does everybody have that? gcflearnfree.org. Does everybody have that webpage?
What is it,
gcflearnfree.org. Is everybody there? Okay, when you get on the page, click on all topics down the bottom right here. See that? I got it highlighted, all topics. Okay?
Wait, you're going a little fast now.
Too fast? Okay, so is everybody on the main page?
No.
No.
No?
GCF.
gcflearnfree.org.
Learnfree.org.
Yes, okay, so bottom right here, you'll see all topics. Go ahead and click on that. Okay, then you're going to scroll down. Underneath working career towards the bottom, big blue box, there's a tab called money, or name money. All right, you're going to click on money basics. Is everybody there?
Yes.
Money basics? Okay, and then number 6 here, managing a checking account. Go ahead and click on that. One thing that might help you in the top right corner is everybody see there's like a paper and a printer.
Yeah.
Click the paper, and it'll
What
put
was the
everything.
last one before you said that?
6.
6. And then when you get on that page, click the paper, it'll put everything on one page, and then you don't have to worry about scrolling through. Okay, so then you pay attention up here, as you can see, it'll take you through the basics of some checking accounts, like we talked about, interest-bearing, joint checking. There's steps that'll show you how to open a checking account. You guys can read through that. How you get your checks. We're going to kind of focus on is writing a check, and then next week, since you guys are presenting Friday and Monday, we'll get into writing a check and balancing a checkbook. So if you scroll down, there's actually an interactive blank check that you can fill out. You guys don't have to worry about deposit slips and withdrawal slips, but then once you get past that, there's some good stuff about avoiding writing bad checks. So scroll through that. Like I said, that guide I gave you, some of that will be answered through here. I'll walk around if you have any questions. Is everybody there so far? Yeah. Anybody have any questions so far, need help? Like I said, next week we'll get some blank checks and we can fill those out and we'll go through how to balance check ledger. Okay. Big question now. Yeah, we just read the bottom two scores. There's a bottom second, so. There's overdraft information. Yeah, do you have questions?
That's one way to know about it, so. But,
I mean, the other three are for sure.
yeah.
One of them's not. Yep. How's everybody doing? Been about done or need a few minutes? If you're not done, you can carry on a minute.
Whenever you're ready, Matt. Nope, it's, see. Right there.
That's for after your.
Wait.
No, I just wanted to see how you did.
Five?
Did I miss?
Dude, six.
Plan the next couple months.
You need an initial deposit.
It needs a big deposit.
Thank you.
It needs a deposit either way.
Does it need a small or large one? You need one.
Minimum is like, let's have a piece this much. It's not like.
Okay, so let me think about that.
No questions at all? Anything? Anybody have questions from the sheet that you weren't sure about?
Number 8, yeah.
Number 8.
Where's that?
The certified check is the personal check that the bank guarantees funds are, what, do you guys think, not available, on hold, available, available with interest?
But I don't remember what it says. Oh. I don't remember what I put.
So I'll read it again. Certified check is a personal check the bank guarantees funds are not available, on hold, available, available with interest.
I put on hold.
Available, is available. First checks is you can use them worldwide. Mrs. Corp was kind of talking to these guys back here about it, so, you can use them in the United States too. Like, it was a popular thing, what, like 80s or so, 90s. But kind of now with electronic transactions, so credit cards, debit cards, people don't use them as much, but if you were to, let's say, travel to LA or something, so what traveler's check is, you go to your bank, and they'll